Hello, this is Kevin Trainer, and welcome to my tutorial on how to install Anaconda for one of my Python related courses. So right now it's the very beginning of the fall semester 2018, and I'm teaching Python related courses, two Python related courses at two different high schools. So we've got four different possibilities. And I finally decided with these kind of installation tutorials that I really needed to combine them a bit. So what I'm doing now is I'm doing the Anaconda installation tutorial. And this should work for both my introduction to application development, which is a beginning Python course, and my web development with application frameworks, which is a kind of an introduction to Django and web application frameworks course. And this is really going to serve for both. And hopefully it'll have a life of about a year. So as you're following along here, I want you to remember that as of today, I've got the most recent version of everything. Today is September 2nd, 2018. So I'm using the most recent version of Windows 10, the most recent version of the Edge browser, the most recent version of Anaconda. But over the course of the year, those things are probably going to change. And unless I tell you differently in your class, I'd like you to do two things. One, be prepared for some dialogue or other to be slightly different. Okay? But what I'd like you to do is just go for the newest version of everything. If there's a new version combination that we come to know won't work for us, then we'll warn you as part of the class. Okay? All right. Having said that, I'm ready to go. So the most recent version of Anaconda is 5.2. And in my classes, we're always using Python 3. So right now, the most recent version of Python 3 is 3.6. So we're going to download that. And I'm on a 64-bit operating system, Windows 10. So I'm going to click on this 64-bit graphical installer. So, of course, it wants to know what that's for, and I'll tell it, I'll give it one of my educational addresses, and my primary role is academic, and ask for the cheat sheet. And now it's started the download, and I'm just going to say that I want to save it. And I've got a pretty good connection here, so we're already 48% through. So that's pretty good. Otherwise, I would have put you on hold until I got all the download done. But just a few more seconds, and we'll be ready to do the install. A watch pot never boils. That's the problem. Okay, we're getting pretty close here indeed. Okay. So we want to view downloads. Oh, that's probably not what we want to do. What we wanted to do was to open the folder, but we didn't. I must confess that I am only a part-time user of Edge, and really of Windows 10. But being a full-service guy, I'm trying to do everything I can uh, to do right by my students who are using Windows 10. So let's go in here, and instead of always kind of hunting around for a file explorer, I'm going to go in and find File Explorer under Windows, right click, and say I want to do more pinned to taskbar. And so now every time I want a File Explorer, I'll just one click on that down in the taskbar, and up it pops. And I want to go to downloads. And I see I've been busy downloading a lot of stuff here, but the one that we're interested in is this Anaconda download. So I'm going to double click on that and see what it starts doing. And I get into a setup dialog, so I'm just going to pick next. And I'm going to agree to the end user license agreement. Probably doesn't matter, but I'll say, sure, you can install this for all users. Okay, and I'm going to click on next. And do I want to allow it to make changes to my device? Yes. And the destination folder here is going to be, it says it's going to put it into C program data Anaconda 3. Sounds good to me. Okay. Now we get a choice here on the next panel of this dialog, and the question is, do we want it to add a setup to the path environment variable? And I've been seduced into that in the past, but everything I read, including just what we read here, would say not to do that. Now, that kind of hobbles us a little bit later on, but I think you'll get a cleaner installation just by doing this. Okay, so register Anaconda as a system Python 3.6. That's fine. We're going to click and say install. And I'm going to pause this because this might take a while. So I'll be right back. Hi, I'm back. So we're getting down towards the end of the download, which is, I must confess, it's taken quite a while on my machine. And one of the things that happened is during the download, we saw a couple of command line prompt windows fire up, and some scripts were executed. One other reason that things could be a little slower on my machine is it's really a virtual machine that runs on a MacBook Pro. It's a completely up-to-date copy of Windows 10, but it runs kind of indirectly, and sometimes that can slow it down. So we've come to the end of the download and the installation. That all happen on the same dialog box. So we're going to click next. And perhaps it didn't hear me, so I'll click again. Yeah, that seemed to work. And they want to know if we want to install Visual Studio Code. And that's not something I really use in my classes, so I'm going to skip that. Click skip. And do I want to learn more about Anaconda Cloud? I really don't. I'm going to uncheck that. And learn how to get started with Anaconda. I really, you may want to leave that checked. We'll see what happens when we do that. And now we'll click on finish. Okay. And we go to the Anaconda documentation and all that kind of stuff, then, um, geez, that's probably okay. You may have noticed when I went to download, I had to give my email address. It promised to send me an Anaconda cheat sheet, and the Anaconda cheat sheet is for working at the command line with Anaconda, and that's certainly something that you may be doing. But right now, we're not going to concentrate on that. Okay, so let's close this browser because we have Anaconda installed. And then let's go over to the start icon and let's go and look at what we do have installed with Anaconda. So we have a folder or a directory for Anaconda 3, which is the kind of Anaconda that we have. And let's see what we have. One feature that we're going to use is Anaconda Navigator. That's going to allow us to configure execution environments for our Python programs without having to work at the command line. So we'll do that. And immediately below that is Anaconda Prompt, and we'll be back here eventually in this series of tutorials. Okay, those are really the two that we use. So let's try to get Anaconda Navigator going. So we clicked on that, and one of the things that I like to do on my machine is I don't like to go hunting for programs. Okay, so Anaconda Navigator, I think, is being installed now. We see some command prompt windows opening up, and I think the product is being installed and configured, and then it's going to start. Okay, that green circle is the logo for Anaconda Navigator, which is kind of attractive in my book. So it's doing the install the first time we use it. But one of the things I want to do is anytime you want to use Anaconda Navigator, I would like it to just be down in the taskbar, because I'm not, again, I'm not a frequent Windows 10 user, and I hate to be searching for it all the time. Okay, good. So we're going to close the downloads directory. And here we are in Anaconda Navigator. Would I like to help improve it? Okay, that's fine. I'm a company man. I'll do that. Okay, so why don't we just back up a minute? I'm going to close this, and I want to show you an easy way to get it open. Do I want to quit? Yes. It's still busy. It's probably configuring some things. I say I'm going to quit anyway. So what I want to do is I want to go back down here to the start icon, and I want to find my way back to the directory for Anaconda. And right here on Anaconda Navigator, I want to right click, and I don't want to pin it to the start. I want to pin it to the taskbar. So I want to choose more, and then come out to the drop down, and I said I want to pin it to taskbar. And you'll see it appear down here in the taskbar. So the things that we use on a regular basis, that's where I like to put them. So let's go to Anaconda Navigator. And what can we do with Anaconda Navigator? Well, if you're doing really any kind of what's the word? I was going to say challenging, but let's say ambitious work in Python, you're going to need some Python code, more than just the plain old Python interpreter. And so you need to download a bunch of Python packages, and you need to install them into some kind of a execution environment. Okay, so the Anaconda has its own version of virtual environments. Now there's another version of virtual environments. It does not come from Anaconda. It's called something like VN. We're not going to use that in my classes. We're going to use these Anaconda virtual environments. Okay. And what we see when we get here is we have a list of all of the Anaconda environments that we can use. And the first one we have is the base or the root, and that has all the packages that came in the Anaconda distribution. And as you can see, it's quite a few. Okay, so these are all the things that it downloaded. Okay, now this is really more than we're going to use in our kind of intro to Python course, and a little bit less than we're going to use in our Django course. So what we're going to do is we're going to create a virtual environment that that we're going to use for the Python course, for plain old Python development. So we go down here to the bottom, and there's a plus icon for create. So we're going to create, and we have to give it a name. And I like to call this one plain underscore, put underscore between the words. I'd like to call it plain old Python development. Okay, so if I'm working on a project that's just plain old Python development, this is the virtual environment that I'm going to use and associate with my project later on. Okay. In terms of packages, we want the Python packages. What version? Well, we certainly want the 3. We just want to take the default version of 3.6, which is typically the latest. Do we want R? Well, in the classes I'm teaching right now, we're not using the R packages for Python, so I'm not going to have you include those. So click on Create, and what we're going to get is we're going to get a collection of packages that's significantly smaller than we had in the base. Okay, so the base, because it gives you access to all of the kind of data science popular packages and all those things. If we were in a data science class, we'd probably want all those in our virtual environment. But because we want to keep these as lean as we can for now, in this plain old Python development, we're just going to have Python and some complementary packages. So as you can see, it's fetching a bunch of things. I'm going to put you on hold until it's already done. Okay, we're back. So the fetching of all the packages at this point has finished, and some of these you're going to recognize, and others you're not. We have a package for Python, and we can see that it's version 3.6.6. And this little arrow here, I think this says that there is a newer version out there, but the version that we get by just asking for it is typically the most stable version. So I typically don't go and further upgrade these. Okay. We do have some other tools. Setup tools helps us to download packages. Pip helps us to download and install packages. wheel is a part of the Java package infrastructure. So we basically got Python and some basic infrastructure parts, and that's it. Okay, and that's all we're going to need for plain old Python development. In my Python course, when we begin to use other packages, we'll come back and we will upgrade the environment and we'll add in other packages, and we'll see them being added at the time that we add them. Okay, so what could you do with this? Well, we're going to use it later on when we get to PyCharm. But I just want to point out there are a couple things that you could do right now. And one of the things is right after the name of the environment, or the env as they call it, if we click on the arrow, we can either open the terminal or open with Python. So let's open with Python to begin. Okay. And we're just going to get into the Python interpreter. And as you can see, it's the interpreter that we're going to want. It's a Python 3.6.6 from Anaconda. Okay, that's just what we were looking for. And when you're in a Python interpreter and you want to get out of it, you can do a call to quit paren, and that's that brings you back into a Windows command line, and then we could probably say exit to get out of a command line prompt. What if we wanted to get into a command line prompt? Well, we could go to that arrow again and click on it and say we want to open a terminal. In this case, it's going to be a command line prompt. What we see is this in parens is the name of the virtual environment that we are in. So right now we are in the plain old Python development virtual environment, and if we say if we were to say Python, it would run the Python interpreter. And how did it know the right one to run? Well, it's the one that is in the virtual environment called plain old Python development. So that works just fine. We don't really have anything to run that's not just the interpreter yet. So again, we're going to do a quit paren, and we're going to do an exit from the command line, and we're going to be done. Okay, now I just want to point out one other thing. What if you wanted to work at the command line and you didn't want to be fooling around with Anaconda Navigator? Is there a way to do that? Well, there is, and I pointed this out earlier. If you go over to the Start menu and under the Anaconda directory or folder, we have this thing called Anaconda Prompt. Okay? And this is a thing that's very important in Windows, because if we just the way that Anaconda installs in Windows 10 with all the defaults that we pick, if you simply open up a command prompt, it doesn't know about Anaconda. Okay? And that's because of the choice that we made, where we said that we didn't want to put it on the system path and all that. But this is the recommended way to use the product. So I'm showing you what they recommend. So let's click on Anaconda Prompt, which is a command line prompt. Okay. But where are we? Well, we are in the base virtual environment, which means we have all those Python packages. So in the base Python, in the base virtual environment, well, it knows about Python 3.6. So if we type Python, it's a different version though, 3.6.5. So that was the base version. Okay, when we created the when we created those specific virtual environments, that plain old Python development, it gave us a newer one, 3.6.6. So let's get out of this one. Quit, paren, and exit. No, we don't want to exit yet. So it turns out that there are a bunch of command line arguments that if you want to work at the command line, you will learn about. Okay, and the command line arguments for Conda are what are on that Conda cheat sheet. So I'm going to just show you the Conda cheat sheet for a minute. I have to make it small enough that I can pull it over the window that we have. Okay, let's see if it fits. It may fit, it may not. We'll see. Will it fit? No, it's not going to work there. So let's go find one. Okay, I'm going to pause it and go find a Conda cheat sheet. Be right back. So I'm resuming. I just did a search on Bing, I guess, for Conda cheat sheet, and here it is. It's the PDF, and it's going to open up. And this is a current version of the Conda cheat sheet, and this is what you would use at the command line. So for instance, if you want to know the virtual environments you have installed, according to this, you type in Conda Env list. If you're inside of a Conda virtual environment and you want to know what packages and versions are installed in the Conda virtual environment that's active, you can say Conda list. Okay? If you want to activate a particular virtual environment, you can say Conda activate and virtual environment name. So that's all we're going to look at there. And let's go back to our command line, which is right here. So let's say Conda Env list. So let's get a list of the Conda virtual environments we have so far. And we would have been able to see those pretty readily with Anaconda Navigator, but it's kind of nice to be able to do it at the command line. And we can see we have two. We have the base one, which we're currently in. That's how you can tell from the parens. And we have the one that we created, plain old Python development. Okay, that looks good. How would we change from the base to plain old Python development? Well, we could say Conda activate plain old Python development. Enter. And you see in the parens, it gives you the name of the virtual environment that you're in right now. It's plain old Python development. Now, how can we tell the packages that are installed in this virtual environment? Well, I remember from my cheat sheet, I can type in Conda list. And again, things are a little slow here, and I think it has to do with me having Windows 10 running under a virtual machine. But you can see I've got Python 3.6.6, which is in fact what I want. And if I just say Python, I just give it the Python command, it'll fire up the Python interpreter, which is a different one than was in the base virtual environment. Here, instead of 3.6.5, we've got 3.6.6. Now that's an imperceptible difference for our purposes. But what's more important is we could have a whole lot of other packages that at some point we may want to add to our Python repertoire. Okay, so this is all we need if we are just in the Introduction to Application Development class. So unless you want to find out, oh, I have to say quit paren to get out of there. Not quite, quit. Okay, and now I'm going to say exit, and I'm out. Okay, so if you're in Introduction to Application Development, if you're in just a Python programming course, that's fine. Okay, you're not going to have to set up any virtual environments for Django. But you can stay if you want. I'll let you. So I still have minimized here a copy of Anaconda Navigator. Okay, and I think you may have intuited if you saw the cheat sheet. Everything you can do with Anaconda Navigator you can do at the command line, but why would you? Unless you're a command line freak, which I certainly am not. Okay, so here we go. Let's, in my Django course, which is not called a Django course, it's called web development using application frameworks. We use Django, and right now we're using Django 2. Okay. Last year we were using a high version of Django 1. So we're going to create a virtual environment. We're going to use it for all the projects in which we're doing Django 2 development. So I'm just going to call this one Django _2 development. And we're going to take the defaults. We'll take Python 3.6, and we don't want R because we're not using R in that course either. And we're going to click on Create. And I'm going to put you on pause until that one's done. So I'll be right back. Okay. So that's resolved. It took a while. So now we have, in addition to base or root, those are kind of interchangeable names. We've got what we had previously, plain old Python development and Django 2 development. And right now, if you were to compare those two virtual environments, they have the same Python packages in them. So for instance, here under Django 2 development, we've got Python 3.6.6. And then we have all those kind of ancillary packages. Now, I just want to point out that even though we promised that this was going to be a development environment for Django 2, we haven't made good on that yet. So this is where we see the feature that we can come back to this Anaconda Navigator and we can add further packages. Or we could delete packages. We could change packages. So these are all things that one can do at the command line if one wants to be a command line maven. Or if one wants to use a GUI app, which I'm a big fan of, well then you come back here to Navigator. So how do we find Django? Well, you might look up at the top of the panel on the right. We have this thing that says installed. We're currently displaying the installed packages, and if we click and we say not installed, okay, we get a much longer list. Now, these are the packages that Anaconda knows about. that are consistent with what we have configured already. And let's just look. They're in alphabetical order. Let's look for a D, Django, DJA. So I'm gonna come down here a bit. Okay. DI, we're almost there. DJ, Django. So let's look across. Okay, Django 2.1. Well, that's fine. I just didn't want Django 1.11 point whatever. So let's just check Django. Okay. And you'll see down here in the lower right, we can say we want to apply that. So we'll apply that, and we're going to get into this kind of situation where it's fetching things from the repository for the packages. Now, the good thing about using Anaconda is that Anaconda has created these repositories of Python packages that they know about. They've collected lots of metadata about the packages, so what version goes with which. And so it really does a lot for us in terms of the configuration management. So right now it says it's going to bring in Django 2.1 and asterisk PYTZ. That's a companion package. So let's just click on apply again. And if you look down at the bottom, you can see some work going on. This is pretty common in the Python tools that we're going to be using, including PyCharm. When you see some action along the bottom, it usually means that it's working. And just to control the amount of time that you're waiting here, I'm going to put you on pause one more time. Okay, so that's resolved. And how do I know? Well, all this kind of action going along in this little footer panel is gone. Okay, so what we're looking at now is not real helpful. We're looking at the list of packages that are not installed. If we did go out and look for Django, Django should be right between dill and right between distributed and DNS Python, and it's not there because it's installed. So let's go back and change the list to what is installed. And you see Django's here, 2.1. And we've got some other tools. We have this PYTZ, which it's a Pi time zone. I don't know whether people call it Pi time zone or Pytes. I call it Pytes, but I don't think I'm... there's a lot of these things that I call things that I think are probably non-standard, so you can follow me at your peril. Okay, so this is a pretty similar virtual environment to plain old Python development, because we've got just the basics of the packages that we're going to need for Django. In my Django course, we're going to be back and we're going to be asking to put more packages in here as we begin to use more advanced features and all that kind of stuff. But, you know, we're going to learn how to do that when that time comes. Okay? So, again, you can go to Django 2 development, and you can right-click, and you can open with Python if you just want to see the interpreter. So the interpreter will find will fire up, and you can see it was 3.6.6. And again, we want to quit the interpreter, quit paren. That's a function call, oddly enough. Okay, and then we can type in exit at the command line. That gets rid of the command line. That's pretty typical. And so we've got that, and we can go to open terminal, and it's going to open the terminal, and we can see that we're in a parens are telling us that we're in the virtual environment Django 2 development. And we should be able to just say here conda list. So we should ask conda to give us a list of all the packages that are installed. And here they are, including Django 2.1. So yeah, that looks fine. Exit. Okay, so I'm going to close this because we won't be back here for a while. And I'm going to click Don't Show again because typically when I say close something, I want it to be closed. All right, so that's fine. And again, I want to show you that if you wanted to work at the command line in Windows with your virtual environment, you can come over to the start icon in the lower left, go up and find this Anaconda directory. Okay. And we have, we brought down a link for Anaconda Navigator. We put that on the taskbar. Let's put Anaconda Prompt there too. So I'm going to not pin to start. I want to pin to the taskbar. So go to More, pin to taskbar. Okay, and it looks like just a plain command line window, but if you hover over it later on, it's probably going to tell us it's an Anaconda prompt. Let's look. Anaconda prompt. Isn't that nice? So it's a special version of the command line prompt, which in which Anaconda has been properly pointed to. So let's fire that up. Okay. And when you fire it up, you're just in the base virtual environment. Again, that has just about everything that Anaconda, everything it wants to put into the base. So it does have a lot of the data science tools. But if you want to know what virtual environments are available, you can say conda n for environment list. And hopefully it'll be a little faster on your machine when you're not using a Windows virtual machine. I can't promise that, but I hope it is. Here we've got the base. We have that plain old Python development, but we have in alphabetical order as they show up Django 2 development. So how could I tell it to use that virtual environment? Well, I can say conda activate Django 2 development, and you'll see Django 2 development right there in the parens. So you know that you're in that. And let's say conda list. This will tell us the packages that are in the environment that we're currently running in. And as you can see, in addition to Python 3.6.6, we've got Django 2.1. So these are all the things that we're going to want for the beginning of the Django course. Let's do an exit here. For those of you who were here for the Intro to Python course, if you're still with us, well then you've learned even more. But at this point, we have all the Anaconda stuff that we're going to need to start the courses installed on Windows 10, ready to go, and we're ready to install the rest of the tools, which for the most part consist of PyCharm. So I'm going to sign off here, and see you soon when you're playing the tutorial for the PyCharm installation. Bye-bye.